There are so many social networks out there. How do you know where you should be as a photographer in 2022? That's what we're going to talk about today. Stick around. Aaron here from techphotoguy.com. Hit that subscribe button so you get the next tech photo goodness coming your way again next week. As a photographer, whether you're a hobbyist or a pro, how do you know which social networks you should be on? Social networks come and go, right? I mean, nobody's hanging out on MySpace anymore, and Google Plus was awesome for photographers while it lasted, but it's been gone for several years now. There are a whole bunch of social networks out there: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. You can't be everywhere. Sadly, you are not Roy Kent, as the chant says. You cannot be here, there, and every fucking where. So if you can't be everywhere, where should you be? Well, this is kind of a part 2 video. I'm going to hit a link up above so you can get to part 1, where I challenge you to really think about your photography clientele and who it is for. There's no single right answer for everyone as to which photography social networks you should be on. So again, hit that video, think about your clientele, and then let's talk about which networks are going to be right for you. One consideration when you look at your online presence is whether your social media is person-based or topic-based. What I mean by that is that some social networks are very much about who you're connected with, who you're following, and who is following you. Other social networks are more topical based. A lot of times they have an algorithmic feed that, drives people based on interest in a particular subject, and it's not as important about the personal connections. Which is right for you will depend on your goals with social media. With all these networks, let's talk a little bit about each one and just kind of understand the demographics to help you identify what's going to be right for your photography ventures. Because if you're a senior portrait photographer, your interests are going to be different than a commercial photographer, which will be different still than a fine art landscape photographer, which will be different than somebody that does maternities or babies. Again, different if you do weddings. Or entirely different yet again if you work in, say, product photography or corporate world or events. So with all those considerations, where should you be? Well, let's start with the big one, Facebook. Most people are on Facebook. Not everyone. I'm not on Facebook, actually. But most people are there. A recent study shows that 70% of American adults are checking Facebook at least once a day. So Facebook can reach a broad audience. Facebook is a very good network to use if you want to do targeted advertising as well, because they collect so much demographic data from their users, and because they get that very fine-grained control. If you want to do paid advertising, Facebook is perfect for you because you can target a very narrow audience. Now, that's the other thing to know about Facebook, is that as a business, Facebook is pay to play. You're going to get near zero organic reach on Facebook from a business page unless you are paying to boost your posts or to run advertising. So your personal Facebook connections might be worth something in kind of social capital and social network goodness, but when it comes to a business page, you're going to need to be willing to spend some money. Instagram was once a photography-based social network, and I say that they once were because they aren't really anymore. This isn't really something totally new. It's been a shift that's been happening over the last few years. But what's been happening is Instagram has been shifting away from still photography. The writing was kind of on the wall. In fact, back in January of 2021, I wrote a blog post talking about how Instagram didn't really seem like a photography social network anymore. And then in June 2021, Instagram head Adam Mosseri came right out and said that directly in a video he posted on the service and on Twitter. He said Instagram is no longer a photo sharing network. So if it's not a photo network, what is Instagram? Instagram has pretty much come right out and said they are looking to compete with video and shopping. They have YouTube and TikTok in their sites, and they are aiming for that younger demographic who's into those things. In fact, only 13% of Instagram's active users are age 45 or older, so it skews towards a younger demographic. Keep that in mind for your photography. If you're targeting that demographic, Instagram is a place that you still should be. Again, you just have to understand it's not as focused on still photos anymore. You're going to need to be doing video. This can be Instagram Reels, it can be video posts, it can be video in your Instagram stories. One way or another, you're going to need to move beyond still photography to be effective on the Instagram platform. So if Instagram's all about video, let's talk about Twitter. What about Twitter? I mean, traditionally it's short little text snippets. Originally it was 140 characters, now it's 280. Twitter can be a great place to engage in conversation if your clientele is there. I've found a lot of success on Twitter. I do a lot of work with the tech industry, with startups. There's a lot of that group that's on Twitter. And so for me, I've been able to gain some new business and maintain a lot of existing business relationships through my Twitter profile. It may or may not be right for you. Let's talk a little bit about Pinterest, right? Here's another network that I think is really important for a lot of photographers because Pinterest demographics skew about 85% female. There are a lot of young women on Pinterest who are doing things like designing their home decor, planning their wedding. In fact, there are probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of young women on Pinterest who have wedding planning boards all created, even though they may not even be in a relationship yet. They're picking out their dress, they're picking out flowers, they're picking out a venue, they're picking out the type of photos they like for their wedding. And so if you are a wedding photographer, you need to be there. We're on YouTube, right? And I talked about how video is important. YouTube can be another great channel to establish your online presence as a photographer. And don't think that YouTube has to have crazy high production value. You can do a YouTube video with your smartphone. You can do a YouTube video with the same camera that you're probably using for your still photography as well. If you understand lighting concepts are pretty similar between photo and video. The one real variable is you do need to make sure your audio is good on video, but you can handle that. I get it. You're a photographer. I have confidence in your technical abilities. So if you are going to go on YouTube or any of these other channels that have video content, what should you put there? Start by looking at the type of things you have on your website or your communications with clients. Can you translate those to video? I bet that you can. Maybe you routinely send some information out to your clients before a photo shoot that talks about how to dress, how not to dress, what to bring, when to get there. Considerations based on the weather, considerations based on whether it's an indoor shoot or an outdoor shoot. All of these things are topics that you could turn into video content for your social media. I would encourage you to do that because, again, the younger audience really is all about video right now. Let's talk about a couple other, kind of peripheral social networks as well. Snapchat can be a great way to connect one-on-one with people. You're not really going to probably gain a lot of new clients via Snapchat. But hey, if you're out doing, let's say, a senior portrait session and your client is on Snapchat, have them create a story with you or whatever. Say hi to their friends, because those friends could turn into new clients for you. TikTok, again, a social network that is almost exclusively folks under the age of 35. TikTok is very topic-based. TikTok is very personality-based. If you're an ex-theater kid, you are probably already on TikTok already, but if you're not, maybe you should consider that. So if you have that personality where you like getting out there and entertaining people, TikTok is a place that you should be. TikTok's not something that's probably going to lead directly to hard photography sales, but it can be a way to get your name and your work out there. So, consider that if that's something of interest to you. I haven't really mentioned LinkedIn, but that's another one you should look at, especially if you're in the space where you're selling photography services to businesses. It can be a good way to connect with business leaders in your community or around the world. And LinkedIn can also be a great tool where if you can go out and research some companies, maybe you're trying to get a connection at a particular company, LinkedIn might be able to help identify who are the people you should connect with and who do you maybe know already that knows them. By building out your LinkedIn network, you can leverage those connections to make introductions at new companies or new locations. So we've talked through a lot of these different social networks. There's a lot of options for places you can be. I would really encourage you to focus on one or two of these at a time. You won't have the energy as a photographer unless you have a big studio staff. You won't have the energy to really focus on a lot of these effectively. Find one or two that you are actively trying to grow and focus on them for a period of months. And that's going to mean producing content regularly. If you're producing longer form video content, maybe that's once a week. If you're producing shorter form things, stories, reels, things like that, you need to be posting multiple pieces of content every day to help grow that audience and to help keep that audience that you have interested in hearing from you. So focus on a couple of them, no more than a couple of them, and use that to help you focus your online presence as a photographer based on who you are, the type of work that you do, and who you want to do it for. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'll jump into the comments and try to answer those as I can. I also do some consulting services if you want a little bit more kind of one-on-one or in-depth planning for your social media efforts. Again, hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, turn on the notifications. I'll be back at you next week and we'll have another topic, to take your photography to that next level. Thanks again. Take care.